So we failed our first request to our API from our client, and what is this? It's CORS, or Cross-Origin Resource Sharing, and this is a security feature implemented in browsers to restrict web pages, such as ours, from making requests to a different domain than the one that served the initial web page. So our web page is being served by our Angular server, localhost 4200, which is a different origin from our API server, which is on localhost 5001. And the idea of CORS is it protects against various security risks, such as cross-site scripting and data theft, by ensuring that resources, and our list of users is a resource, are only loaded from trusted origins as specified by the server. So this is something that's specified by our server and returned to the client browser as a header in our HTTP response. And as long as this origin is allowed by the CORS policy, then the browser will load up the resources that returned from our server. So this is a server configuration setting that we need to change. So we'll go back to VS Code and let's close all this stuff down for the time being, and we'll go back to our Solution Explorer, and inside our program.cs then we're going to add CORS as both a service and middleware, because we need to affect the request on its way back to the client. So in order to use CORS, we first of all add it as a service, and we'll say builder and services and add CORS, and we have a service specifically for this. And then in order to use it, then we add it as middleware. Now when it comes to middleware, this HTTP request pipeline, the ordering does become important. And before we map our controller endpoints, we need to add our CORS middleware. So please don't be experimental in middleware and put it after the app run. That's not going to work. If you put it below the map controllers, it may work. But if you put it here, it will definitely work. So that's what I'm going to suggest, that you add your middleware to the same place that I'm adding mine. So I'm going to say app use CORS, and then we specify the policies inside our middleware we want to provide. So I'm going to say X as the parameter inside what is referred to as a lambda expression. So our app use CORS can take an expression, and we're going to say X, and I'll typically just say X goes to when I'm talking about an arrow type of function. And this is really referred to as a lambda expression in C#. But then we can chain on what we want to happen. So we're going to say that our CORS policy, we're going to say we want to allow any header. And then after the closing parentheses, we can say that we want to allow any method. So get, post, put, delete, etc. But then we can specify which origins we want to allow these requests from. And here we can specify our Angular application. So I'm going to say http://localhost, and once again spelling does become important here, and 4200. And that will suffice for our CORS policy. But soon we're going to be adding the ability to run our Angular application over HTTPS. So just on that basis, then at the same time, we can add multiple origins inside here. So I'm going to add a comma and then paste in the same again, but I'm going to change this to HTTPS. So when it comes to our origins, either one of these two URLs will be acceptable and will return effectively a CORS header that says that these origins are allowed. Now, when we make a change to our middleware, we do have to fully restart our API server. And when I say fully restart, even if hot reloader changes appears to have succeeded, I don't trust it for things like middleware. So I'm going to stop my API server and then rerun .NET's watch. And if I ever say fully restart the API server, that's really what I'm talking about. Make sure that we shut everything down and then start everything back up again. So once that has restarted, we can head back to our browser, and if we refresh the page, what we find now is that we do not get any errors, and we can see the request has completed that we put into our app component on line 21. If we go back to that and take a look at it, and I'll open up the app component.ts, then this is the output of line 21 into our console. The request has completed. So we've gone out to our server, we're subscribing, we've hit the next, and this response will have set this.users to that response. We didn't get an error because we don't see anything in our console, but the request did complete. Now, you'll often hear it said that when you subscribe to something, you should unsubscribe from it, otherwise it's going to hang around in memory and consume memory on that user's computer. But when it comes to HTTP requests, then they always complete. And when a request is completed, we are no longer subscribed to the thing that we are subscribing to. And when we see that request has completed in the console log, we are no longer subscribed to the observable returned from the HTTP request. So technically true that you should unsubscribe when you use the subscribe, but an HTTP request, because it always completes, or in 99.999% of the time it always completes, then we don't necessarily have to unsubscribe from an HTTP request, or at least that's the approach I'm taking in this training course. And if we go back to our browser and we take a look at the network requests again, and we find the request going to our user's endpoint, the request going to HTTPS localhost 5001 API users, then we can see that in the response headers from our API server, we've got the access control allow origin header that's set to the origin we're coming from, HTTP localhost 4200. And if we take a look at the response, then we can see that we have our users returned here. And if we take a look at the preview, we can see it in slightly better formats with the ID of 1 and the username equal to Bob. Notice though, that even though our username is in Pascal casing on our API server, when it's returned as JSON, it does change the casing to camel casing, which is the default response convention for JSON data. JSON data uses camel case. Our C# classes use Pascal casing, but our API or our .NET API server is well aware that the correct response for JSON data should be in camel casing, so it automatically converts it into camel case in our response. Angular is also a case-sensitive language, so you do need to also be aware of that. And when it comes to using this data, which we'll do next, we'll see that in action.